Hello and welcome to WMT Reviews. I am Wiseman Znofsky. Now, since my figures on my review shelf have been rearranged, I've had literally a message asking for a closer look at some of the Kai Play Arts figures I've got. So, I'm nothing if not willing to cooperate, so I'm going to start a quick series of the 8 figures that I have thus far, and of course when the next 2 arrive I'll do them as well. So, we're going to start off with the first one I got, which would be this one right here. This is Kai Play Arts Dark Knight Rises Bane. As I say, it was the first one I picked up. I picked up Batman and Bane at the same time, but Bane was the first one I opened. And I have to say, I kind of hate Kai Play Arts a little bit, because these figures have completely re-evaluated my idea of a good figure. I mean, 3 3/4 inch figures don't stand a chance anymore. Even 6 inch figures don't stand a chance. The 7 inch line from the Arkham series don't stand a chance. These figures are amazing. They're almost Hot Toys quality for like a fraction of the price. I mean, each of these figures is £60 thereabouts. I picked up mine from the Bath branch of American Candy Comics, which is one of my favourite places in all the land. And I gotta say, every time I hear there's a new one coming out, I just have to pre-order it, because they're just beautiful. And they get their own shelf over here. When I'm not doing reviews, this shelf becomes the stand for my TARDIS playset and for my Kai Play Arts figures. Because they're just magnificent. Look at the detail on that face. Look at that. Now, granted, it's not 100% screen accurate. What I like to think of is a lot of these figures are a mix of the Nolan appearance, or the Nolanverse appearance, with just a dash of comic thrown in as well. For instance, on the Bane figure, you'll see his muscles are very, very defined, whereas in the film, it was just sort of buff looking. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tom Hardy is buff, but this is super buff. It's like the Dark Knight Rises Bane with the concept of Venom introduced. So you can even see his veins have been picked out, and they've got a sort of bluish-grey tint to them, which would imply the use of Venom. I've got this far in without even mentioning the fluff. Bane is Batman's most physically challenging opponent. He first rocked up a very long time ago in, I believe, his first story was Vengeance of Bane, leading on to the Nightfall trilogy, in which he drove Batman to his limits and then broke his spine. The Tom Hardy portrayal of Bane, slightly different. He was an excommunicated member of the League of Assassins, and he returns to finish the work of Ra's al Ghul in destroying Gotham City. Let's get into the figure itself. As you can see, he's moulded in his his flight gear. I think that's what they call it. He's got these lovely brown cargo trousers on. Good detail on the boots as well. And his harness that he also walks around clutching, looking very intimidating. And this curious face mask design. I'm in absolute awe of this figure. Don't get me wrong, it's by no means perfect, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it's just phenomenal to look at, and also pretty darn poseable. If anyone saw my Batman vs. Bane video a few months back, it was a primitive stop-motion kind of video. He's very poseable. There's all sorts of poses you can get him in. I like to have him in this sort of pose, like intimidating, like he's standing in front of a crowd and just talking down to everyone in his Sean Connery Darth Vader impression. Now, into the posability. The head is on a ball joint, the neck is on a separate ball joint, There is a ball joint in the middle of the chest. There's a swivel in the upper arm. There's 2 joints in the shoulder. Bends at the elbow. Ball joint at the wrist. I believe there's 2 ratchet joints in his hip. Each of the legs on a very clicky joint. He's got 2 joints in his knee. And finally, a joint in his foot. So yeah, pretty darn poseable. I can't remember exactly how many points of articulation the box said he had, but it was a lot. It was a lot. Now, on the subject of posability, I'd like to get into a very serious issue with this figure. The only real issue, and I don't believe it's a problem even shared by the rest of the Kai Play Arts line, it's just this figure in my experience. The first time I discovered this, I'd come home from work, and Bane, because I only had Bane and Batman at the time, they were on my windowsill, and I must have left a window open, and there's a gust of wind, and I came in, and Bane was on the floor. Not a major issue, because, you know, it's a very sturdily made figure, except he was on the floor like this. Imagine just how far my heart sank. Because I didn't see this at first, I just saw the legs over one side and the body over there. I damn near cried. Now, of course, now I know it was just the ball joint up here, which, if I can get my camera to focus on it, I don't know if I can. Let's have a look-see. Yeah, you can already see in the ball joint some wear and tear, and I don't really understand that, and some of the paint has started to chip off here. Come around to the side, here you got another bit of paint chippage happening. Around the back, a little bit more there. Basically anywhere there is contact between the top half of the body and the bottom half of the body, it's sort of chafed the colour away. Now, as a result of that, I don't think the 2 halves really fit together all that well. So you have to be really careful when you're posing him, or the bottom half will fall off. Now, Bane is supplied with a couple of scale accessories. First among them are some interchangeable hands, both open and sort of contorted, like the left hand is at the moment, and both hands are also available as fists. So you can have him with both his fists clenched, or you can have him one fist clenched, one fist open. I like to have, as I say, one fist clenched, one fist open, because in a sort of very reading too deeply in how you pose your figures, it sort of gives off the brute strength appearance of Bane, as well as the mind game playing psychopath that there is in there as well. He's not just brute force, he will also break your mind. Bane is also supplied with a shattered Batman cowl from the moment just after he broke Batman's spine. He can hold this. If you have a look, there's a thumb-shaped hole in the side. If we flip it round, there are 2 more finger holes around the back. And he does hold this. Here we have Bane holding the shattered cowl. While I was in pause mode there, I was trying to get him to hold it in his other hand, but I think it's been designed to be held in his gauntlet hand, because all the holes sort of line up exactly where they need to be in this hand, not so much with the other one. Now, all of these Kai Play Arts figures are supplied with a base. I don't like the base, so I haven't assembled any of them. I looked at the design for it, and hang on, give me a moment. So here we have the base, still unassembled and in its box. This isn't the one for Bane, this is for Catwoman, as you can see. And if we come to the side here, where it's showing you how to assemble it, you can see more or less what you end up with is a translucent version of one corner of Dr. Octopus's fusion machine. Now, it's got a pincer, which I assume is intended to go around the waist, I don't like it. I don't like the base. That's why I haven't bothered to assemble any of them. I feel like it, while it may add a great amount of stability, I don't like the idea of... It's a bit silly, really, the reason why I don't like it. It feels like you're strapping your figures into a stand. If I had to think of something to compare it to, I would compare it to the glass boxes in Toy Story 2. The collector guy who puts his figures in glass boxes. Maybe that film had too much of an effect on me, but ever since then, I've always said, no glass cabinets, nothing that traps my toys. Just in case they do want to get up and walk around at night. So, we'll wrap up now with the Awesometer result for Bane. Now, I would start out quite high for Bane, because he is a phenomenal figure. He doesn't really have too many problems with him, apart from, sometimes I feel like he's a bit too poseable. I know, there's no pleasing some people, but I do genuinely feel like he's a bit too poseable. It takes forever to find a good pose for the legs that can support his body. Another point is he's got a really severe arch in his back. Again, I'm going to put this down to the fact that the top half of the body and the bottom half of the body aren't the right shape. They're not the right shape to go together. If you see here, he's got like a bit of a shrunken chest going on, and it doesn't look very intimidating. And he's standing in a very effeminate S-shaped pose, really. And it does make the figure top heavy at times, and obviously with the extra posability in the legs, it can make it a pain in the neck to stand up. Not as bad as some other figures in this line. No Catwoman's named, but we'll get to her. But yeah, it's still an amazing figure. I'll deduct points for the ball joint quality control mess up in the middle of the chest, but I wouldn't deduct too many points, and I would go down maybe as far as 7. 7 on the Awesometer for Dark Knight Rises Bane. So, it's a damn good figure, apart from the problem in the chest. But, yeah, I would thoroughly recommend hunting this guy down if you can. He may be a bit more expensive now, because obviously he's been out for a little while now. As I said, I picked him up for 60 quid. And I was happy with that. That's a decent price for these figures. Anyway, I've been Wiseman Danofsky. This has been WMT Reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.